to be looking at GarageBand and a couple of basics as to how we can use it to create some looping and all of its features and just a little bit of the interface. I'm going to share my screen with you and start off with just something I put together today, and then I will show you how you can do something like this yourself. So cool. I should mention, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them all towards the end of the workshop. And again, thanks Prospect Library for giving me this platform to do this. Cool. So let's start off by just opening a GarageBand file, how to start from scratch. Now, I'll have to start my screen share again because it was just sharing that. Okay, cool. So here we have an empty project. There's a bunch of templates down here that you can use. They're all good for different things, but I think the best is just starting from scratch. So the empty project. And when this comes up, you've got a few different choices. There is software instrument, which if you have a USB keyboard, or you can actually use your regular keyboard, you can play things. Otherwise, we're going to look mostly at loops today. There's audio tracks, which if you have a microphone or you can plug your guitar into an interface, you can record. And then there's drummer tracks, which allows you to create a drum beat. Oh, sorry. My screen share has gone crazy. Can you all see my screen properly? Yes? Okay, awesome. So we should be seeing these 4 different types of tracks. Anyway, we're going to start with the software instrument. That's the best one for us to do this kind of thing with. Now we're going to look a little bit into the user interface over here. So we have down the left-hand side, there's a couple of different instruments. You can choose between different sounds. We're not going to focus on this today because we're going to look mostly at loops. But if you were to be recording your own instruments through like a MIDI instrument, this is where you'd use. This is the smart controls for down the bottom here, which we don't need right now, but we can look at that later. What we're going to focus on is up here in the top right. There's this little loop browser. So we're going to try and create a song using just loops from in here. And I'll show you how you can manipulate the loops and do a few different things with them. But I think a good place to start is just with drum kit or percussion. Now, if I'm going too quick, please tell me to slow down, and I'll try and go as slow as possible. So once we've clicked that, you've got the drum kits, and we can see a bunch of different drum beats down here. If you hover your mouse above them and then click on it, it'll play you some previews of them. Now, I have a couple that I've favorited, and you can do that just by clicking the little love heart checkbox next to it. So the one I used in that track I showed you from the start was this one. And once you've done that, you can just click on it and drag it to wherever you'd like. So I have it here, right at the start. And to play or preview it now, you can press the space bar, or you can go up to this little button here and press play. And that's just going to play through these 2 bars, I should say. Each one of these is called a bar along the top here. So there's 4 beats in each bar, and you can see these little increments here. So this is a 2-bar loop. Well, it's a 2-bar sample. I'll look at a few different terms throughout this. So this is what you'd call a sample. However, when you do this, you can loop that sample. And you can do that just by clicking the top and dragging it along. So now we have a 16-bar loop. Another thing you can do is click up the top here. This turns cycle on. This is another button for it here, or you can press the C on the keyboard. And once we've done that, it will just repeat what we have for however long we've selected. We can drag that along and we can select more. So this will just repeat those 16 bars over and over again. It's fun because once we have that going, we can go down here and we can find some other instruments that we might like. I've favorited this one, so I'm going to go down and add a bass guitar now. So this is the one that I used in the track that I showed you at the start. Sorry. And if you just click on it, you can preview it over the top. If you like it, you can drag it onto the song. So to keep it going, we can drag that a little bit longer. I'm going to change my loop time just so it cycles from here to here so we don't get the drum intro that I created. Selection of keys or notes played in the loop. So, I believe you're talking about the actual notes in the loop. Now, this is an audio sample, and we can't edit the actual notes in this loop. We can change the key that it's in, though. So that is up here. Now, it's in the key of C major. We can change that to D major. It'll change every note, though. I hope that answers your question. So in D major, it would sound like this. I'm going to bring it back to the original key. Did that answer your question, Chardonnay? Awesome. So while we're at it, up here, you can also change the tempo of the track. So it's currently set at 100. It's currently set at 100, but we can move it up. We can make it faster, or we can make it slower. So now it's going to sound like this. I will bring it back to 100 though, because I like that a lot more, not 1,000. Okay, cool. So once we have that, we can start adding in other sounds. Electric piano is always good. Now this is all up to you. You can do whatever you like. You can you can do whatever you like. You can put in whatever kind of sounds you like. I personally think an electric piano over the top of this would sound quite good. Cool. Now, let me just have a look over here. Is anybody having trouble with my audio? Intermittently? Okay. Seems to be cutting out. I think it might be when I'm talking and when the microphone and playing music at the same time. I will try to turn my microphone off when I'm playing music. Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so let's have a play around here. So we can copy and paste the loops. We can move them a little bit further. One really fun trick is to, if you hold down the Option key and click on the loop, you can drag it. And that way, instead of doing this function that just extends it, you can move it to a new spot and have a break in the middle, which is excellent because you don't want the same loop playing for the entire song. Otherwise, it sounds really boring. Maybe not really boring, but you can add a little bit more variety if you can swap it up like that. Now, what else did I have in the other song? I had some woodwind and I chose a flute. Which I, for some reason, can't hear, but we'll see how we go. Okay, I seem to have lost my audio for some reason. I'm just going to stop the share really quickly and try and figure that out. Okay, I'm just going to restart GarageBand in case that's what's doing it. Sorry about this, everybody. That's not GarageBand, that's a different program. I'm just going to take a quick break. Is anybody trying to make a song at the same time as this, or are we we're going to wait till after? Just watching? No worries. Well, oh, there's a couple of people in the waiting room. I'll admit them. Beautiful. Cool. So I might just have to go to my headphones because I'm not getting any sound now. Okay, I'm very sorry about this. Okay, cool. Can you guys still hear that? Cool, beautiful. Okay, so we're back. Now, let's just have a quick look at some other little features that we can do. So we've started, we've got our drum beat, we've got a little bass line, we've got some chordal things going on the electric piano, and now we have a little bit of jazz flute, which I really like. Cool. Something that we could do to maybe make a little bit of variation is choose another drum beat. So what did we have there? We had basic vintage break. And then you can kind of just find one that you like the sound of to go along with it. Not that one. Probably not that one either. Let's look for something with a little bit of variation. But I don't want it to go on for too long, actually. Yeah. So once we've done that, we can choose just other parts just to try and build ourselves a song. Now let's try and pick another bass line. The pocket bass. I'm going to sample, I'm just going to turn this cycle on, and which, in case anybody that's just come to the meeting didn't catch, you can press that up here or press this button or C, and you can extend the little part that you want to cycle through. And I'm just going to play that while I try and choose something to go over the top of it. And you can do that by pressing play or spacebar, and then putting your mouse over one of these and just clicking it and previewing it over the top of it. Now I think that's going to go pretty well with the other bass line and drum beat, but who knows? We'll see. Cool. I quite like that. Again, I'm doing most of this on the fly. It's not exactly the same as the one I made before because I didn't write down what I did. I did try to favorite them, but I forgot what was what. Anyway, so what I've just done there is I've copied the first part and put it back after the second part. Now it's a little long and I've pretty much run out of space in the project, but what you can do is head up to this top right here and you see the end marker and you can extend it for as long as you want. Cool. So over the top of that new part that we've put in, we're going to want to put something else over the top of that just to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm sorry that the playback is having a bit of an issue. I'm recording this whole session, so I'll make sure that's available as well. So you'll be able to see what's happening on my screen at a later date and hear it. It could also just be me stopping the playback. I'm not sure because I'm not constantly playing audio. Over the top of this guy, I'm going to try and put something. Now, maybe some more flutes. See what happens. Okay. So now that I've got that, I'm going to put the electric piano just at the other side of it. Cool. So now I've got a little breakdown in there. Awesome. So it's really up to you what loop you choose and how you like to do it, depending on what you're going for and what sounds. The best thing is just to go through and try a lot of different things. And if it sounds bad, get rid of it. If it sounds good, use it. I should mention here that there's a little filter that allows you to choose either minor, major, neither, or both. So this refers to the scale that the samples are in. So these ones are in a minor key. Even though it says it's in C major, it's a minor sounding song. It sounds a little bit sad or somber, whereas major things sound a bit more chipper and happy. So that'll help you choose the right samples. But again, just have a listen and see what you can find and what you like the sound of over the top. Let's try and add a couple of other things. Some synths, they're always fun. Now, that might be a little too epic. That works over the top. I'm going to throw that down here. So yeah, if you just keep dragging below, you'll see it always makes a new track for your new sample. And you can either use them or you can put them up onto a different track. However, it will affect the sound if you put something that's a little synth sample on top of an electric piano, because it's got a few other parameters on there that will affect the sound of the sample. Let me see if I can explain that better. So down here, once I've clicked this smart controls button, this shows me the effects and things that are on this track. It should. Okay, maybe it doesn't. Sorry, it did before. It was showing me the plugins, but that might only be for ones that have a plugin on it. However, you will hear that it sounds slightly different. You probably can't hear it over the internet though, unless you are listening through good quality headphones. Okay, we'll go back to our loop browser, and I just want to show you a couple of other things. So there's a couple of different types of samples. So these blue ones here, these are Apple Smart Loops, essentially. They are audio files, but they can be modified with this tempo and with the scale, so with the key that we're playing in. But you will see some that are green, and these are MIDI. Let's just throw that in for fun. So the green are MIDI. You can actually edit all of the notes that are being played. If you might need a little bit of music theory knowledge to do that. But if you double click on it, you can go into it and you can see all the notes. And you can move them around. By clicking on them, you can hear each note and you can change them. So anyway, let's have a listen. Yeah, so that's something else that you can do. With MIDI loops, they're a lot more flexible than audio loops. You can get rid of some of the notes, you can move them around, you can change the quantize, you can quantize them, which means you can snap them to the grid, essentially putting them out of time or in time. Sorry. So we're currently at a 16th of a note. If I made it an eighth of actually they're quite fast. A quarter of a note, then a quarter note, everything would be on the beat. We can also change how hard the note's being played. That's the velocity down here. So that was just, I did that by double clicking on the loop, and you can go and have a look at all of those things. Now, we can look at extending these a little bit. What did we have over the top here? We've been piecing together our song. We've got a few sections. I'm sorry, I hope you can actually hear what's going on. And then we've just got a couple of other parts. Cool. So what else can we do? Apart from add more and more parts, that's pretty much what we've got. You can, if you'd like, try to record parts on another instrument. So this was a software instrument we selected at the start of the session. If you want to add a new one, sorry, it's up here. It's this little plus button, and you can add a software instrument, audio track, drummer track. Let's have a look at drummer tracks. So they're a bit more controllable than your drum loops, and they are yellow. So I'll just have a look at this one. Here's a couple of other little functions down the side here. This headphone next to it, that is to solo that track. That means that that's the only track you're going to hear. And this one is to mute next to it. So if I replace the other drums that we had with this drummer track, I'll drag it out to the end of the song. Okay, so once we've done that, we can, these are very editable. You can do a lot to these. So down the bottom here, we can see a couple of different presets. To the left here, you can see, you can change your drummer. This guy's Parker, he's a 60s songwriter. That's his drumming style. He's in songwriter. We can change to R&B. We could use Rose, and it'll change the type of drum kit that's being used, but also the playing style. And we can do that down here as well. We can change that. Okay, and down the bottom here, we can change, we've got this XY axis. We can make it more complex. We can make it louder. We can make it simpler, or we can make it softer. And that really depends on what you're going for in terms of the song. We can also change what drums are frequently being used. So we can add in percussion and have some tambourine. We can say we want to play on more cymbals. And this one, these here, just say how much of each you want. So if you want more kick or more snare, so these two drums, you can go right up to the top and you'll get a drum beat that has a lot of kick and snare. Of course, you don't want a lot of everything or it's going to be really busy. Unless you're making music that really wants a busy drum beat. Okay, that tab down the bottom, that came up automatically when we inserted a drummer track. So that was up here with the plus, and you used a drummer track instead of a loop. And once you did that, it automatically brought up this. If you lose it, you can bring it up by selecting the drummer track and clicking on the scissors. Cool. Let's try. No worries. If you want the drums to be a little more interesting, you can change the number of fills they do. So fills are essentially what drummers do at the end of every couple of bars to break up the song a little bit and break up parts. So if we had fills all over the place, it would be like. Of course, you don't want to go too crazy. I mean, you can do whatever you want, really, whatever you like the sound of. Anyway, so now that we've got Rose as our drummer, I'll just delete the other drum beat that I was using because it was a little bit boring. Now, I should mention that. Did you catch it this time? Or would you like me to show you again? No, okay, so it automatically comes up when you press play, well, this plus and add a drummer track. So this guy here. And then this will automatically show up. Otherwise, you can press this scissor button, which is the editor. And for different types of files or samples, it will be different. So for drummer tracks, this will show up. But if you are on one of these tracks, you'll get the audio. And if you are on a MIDI track like this one, you will have the MIDI editor down here. Cool. Speaking of MIDI tracks, another thing that we can do is open up a thing called musical typing. Now you can go to Window and press Show Musical Typing, or you can press Command K. And it brings up a little keyboard. So on our classic electric piano up here, we can now play the keyboard. Now, if you actually know how to play the keyboard, that's it. Those notes do not correspond to the actual keyboard. Those notes are completely different. However, this is your C, this is your E, this is your, well, that one is your G. So that's good. So I guess if we're going to play a little loop, you could play the piano over the top of it. You can try and play around with recording your own loop. I just realized I don't even know what key this is in, so that didn't work very well. Okay, that's quite interesting because it's supposed to be in C major, but it's actually in C minor. So good to know that just because GarageBand has its samples all in the same key as each other, it's not necessarily going to be the same key as what you would be playing on a regular instrument. I guess that's a little bit of a downside, but I'm sure it's not like that for all of the loops. Anyway, you can play around with that if you like. I'll just put something down really quickly, and we can do this just by pressing this record button up here, which is also keyboard shortcut R. Okay, nothing too interesting. I'm going to exit musical typing now, which you can do by pressing Command K again. But we can edit this audio after the fact. So that recorded a MIDI file, and here's the notes I just played. That one wasn't a very good one. So I got back into that editor by double clicking on it, and we have this again. So hopefully these were a better choice of notes. You can do this just by dragging these to, you see you have your keyboard along the side here, and these lines correspond to the note that you're playing. So once I've changed those notes, cool, that sounded a bit better. Anyway, we can loop that. How are we going for time? Oh, cool. Another cool thing about MIDI samples is that we can change the instrument after the fact. So what's now classic electric piano could be a hard rock guitar. Now that is all in the side over here. You get to that by pressing on this library over on the top left. So we can change that instrument from classic electric piano and go through and choose something else. Let's go crazy. Let's go vibraphone. I like vibraphones a lot. Now you might have seen that once I selected that instrument, I got some new controls down here. So they are called smart controls. They're over here. And that's what I was trying to show you before, but it is just for MIDI files that we can change these. So we can adjust a lot of things. We could add some delay to it, which we can add reverb. So delay is pretty much what it sounds like. Delay is the same note being repeated. It doesn't give you a lot of control over the delay here except the amount of it. Tremolo, which is another fun sound. It's kind of like a dip in volume. Anyway, that's probably a little bit advanced for the GarageBand Basics class, but we might talk about that in the second installment. There's another little thing here called EQ, which we'll also talk about later. A couple of other little simple things that we can look at are the levels down the side here. So these are the volume of each individual track. I'm going to delete this one because that was my second drummer track that I didn't need. Okay. So these are levels. We can adjust those. So if you want something to be a little more quiet, a little quieter, or if you want something to be a little louder, you can either go right or left. Cool. Right obviously is, oh, not obviously, right is louder because decibels are going up and left is going down. So we'll probably look a little bit more at mixing in particular as well in the second one. But just another quick knob here is the pan. So that shows what speaker it's coming out of or what side it's going to. So if you pan to the right, it's only going to, all the way to the right, it's only going to come out of one side. And if you pan all the way to the left, it's only going to come out of the other side. That is just another little thing in case you're confused about what that was all over there. We haven't covered a lot of the stuff up here. So up here we have our key, our time signature. This is in 4/4. That's a pretty common time signature. We can change that to 3/4, 5/4, 6/8, 7/8. Probably just keep playing around in 4/4 until you're a little bit more advanced. But if you want to have a look at 3/4, go for it. This just indicates where we're at. So this says 7.1. That is bar 7, beat 1. When it gets to beat 2, beat 3, beat 4, beat 5. And then we go to, there's no beat 5, sorry. Then it goes to bar 8. Cool. What other little parts over here haven't we really looked at? This is to import external media into it, and this is just a little notepad, and you can write yourself notes if you want, which is probably pretty handy. I should have done that so I could recreate the track I had at the start. And this guy here is a metronome, or click. If you press K, it turns it on. If you press K, it turns it off. That's more handy for if you're recording real instruments and not using loops and things like that, because the loops that are in here or the samples that are in here are already in time and they snap to the tempo of the song. What else? There's a little help function up here if you need it. Cool. So I guess one last thing was with the drummer, we can press this plus at the end of it, and that gives us another part. So we can go back to our editor, which is up here on the right. And if we want to change our drum part, we can say, okay, this part I want to be really simple and loud, and I want to have more hi-hat, and I want some more kick and snare. And then we'll get some variation in our drum beat. That's a good way to break up a song. So I'll probably not keep that one going for too long. You can drag these just like every other loop and repeat them, but you have the option to continue it. Oh, one other thing is these, for example, these loops over here that we were using before. So I keep moving things around because they're getting in my way, like the chat's in the way of everything I need to see. So this jazz hustle flute that I used, if there's a few things in a series in here, you can choose the other ones. So say we had jazz hustle flute 1 here. If we want to move that one across, if we want to repeat that, but have some slight variation, we could move to jazz hustle flute 2, and then we play the second part. Cool. Or jazz hustle flute 3, jazz hustle flute 4. That's the same for anything in this little sample library down here that has multiple of them. So if you would have put for instance, if we were to put this guy over here, you could change these too. So that one could be microchip piano 2, microchip piano 1, microchip piano 3. I don't know why they name them these things, but again, just go through, have a listen to some of them, and favorite the ones that you like the most. Okay, so that one doesn't sound that great up loud, but if I put it to one side, it might add a little bit of texture or something like that. Okay, does anybody have any questions about the things that we've looked at today? Anything that you'd like me to go over again or look at really quickly? We have a couple of minutes left. Nope. Okie dokie. Well, yeah, so that is essentially the introduction to GarageBand. There's a few things around the place. Hopefully it gave you a little bit of insight as to some of the features. I'm still spotting little things here and there that I should probably point out. This little guy is a horizontal zoom, and you can scroll in if you want to go really close and see what you're doing. There's a lot of powerful editing tools in here. You just have to figure out how to use them, but that's what I'm here for. So yeah, you can scroll in, you can see things a little bit closer if you need, and you can do that down here as well. With our actual in the editor over here. The editor is used a little bit better to just cut things a little more fine. Could you show us how to export this so we can play in iTunes? Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I'll save it. Okay, I actually haven't really looked in how to do it up there, but if you select everything and go Apple A, and then go, Command A, and then Command B. Oh no. Share. Sorry. Export song to disk. There we go. keep getting confused with Logic. So if you go share export song to disk, then you can have your project. Just call it project 1 and save it to wherever you like. I'm going to save mine to my desktop and then click export. And that converts it to an MP3. Once you've got your MP3, you can just open it in iTunes or drag it into your iTunes, which I don't actually think exists anymore, your Apple Music. Apart from that, you can airdrop it to people. You can actually export it if you have GarageBand on your phone, or if you have it on your iPad, you can also export the project to GarageBand for iOS, and that way you can put it on your phone, play around with it on the bus, or on your iPad and play around with it on the couch or whatever, however you like to do it. You can also go straight to SoundCloud if you're a budding producer and want to get your stuff straight up on the internet. And that's all in this share. And I think that's pretty much covers it for basics. Does anybody have any other quick questions? Oh, okay, awesome. Well, in a couple of weeks' time, on a Monday as well, we're going to run another class going through a few more advanced editing techniques and a little bit more about mixing and quantizing and actually recording some instruments. I might make some loops that you can play around with. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. And we will get a video of this. I think Prospect Library will have a video of this for everybody to be able to access after the fact. And if you have any questions, I believe the next one is on the 29th of June, which is another Monday night. And we'll look at a couple bit more in-depth things. And hopefully I have any audio issues fixed that might have happened this time. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Simon.